Hi, everyone. Welcome to Future Talks. Thank you for joining us for our virtual Future Talks event. I'm Arian Evans, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a part of New Relic social impact team, newrelic.org. Through our community programs, we're committed to driving more equitable access to technology, engaging our community in conversations that provoke, challenge assumptions, and motivate you to take action to further the movement and bridge the digital divide. We are so proud to bring back this free virtual event to provide our community with opportunities to hear about topics and future trends impacting the tech ecosystem. I wanted to share a reminder. Typically, Future Talks is in real life. We're joined in real life by our recruiting team, but since we're virtual today, please visit our careers page to check out our list of open positions. As another reminder, this is a public event with relics and non-relics present. Please submit questions for the panel through the chat feature, and we will capture them for the Q&A portion at the end. And now I'd like to welcome our moderator for today's discussion, Myles McDonell. He is the chair for New Relic Veterans and manager for safety and security. Myles joined New Relic's physical security team in 2018 and is based in San Francisco. He's advocated for veterans and chaired the Veterans ERG for the last 6 years. Myles, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Ariane, and welcome everyone at home tuning in. So today, this panel discussion brings together veterans who serve in the tech ecosystem today in their respective areas of recruitment, job readiness, programming, and diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. So today we'll be exploring how the tech industry can benefit from hiring and supporting veterans, breaking down stigmas of veterans re-entering the civilian workforce, and what is the future of making tech more accessible for vets. So for those in the audience who may be new to non-traditional recruiting, this statistic should give you an idea of the resource that we're tapping into. So according to the US Government Accountability Office, or the GAO, approximately 200,000 service members transition from military service to civilian life each year. So that should perk up our recruiters and hiring managers watching at home. The GAO continues, some veterans may experience difficulty in finding civilian employment after leaving the service. For example, a veteran may be unfamiliar with effective job search strategies and may not know how their military experience and training could apply to jobs in the civilian workforce. So the problem there that the GAO highlights probably isn't news to our audience, but this sets the stage for our discussion about not just veterans getting into tech, but for the veteran community's employee experience. For those that are currently working in tech, what can companies be doing to be more inclusive and impact the future of accessibility for veterans? So with that, let me turn to our panelists. Please introduce yourselves. If you could share your name, pronouns, and anything you'd like the audience to know about you, both personally and professionally. Perhaps include your years of service, military branch, or rank. And with that, I'd like to start with Chris Starling.
Hey, thanks, Myles. Hey, my name's Chris Starling. I'm a retired Marine colonel. I spent 26 years on active duty as an infantry officer. And what I do now, I run NPower California. And basically, I train veterans and young adults from underserved communities on that non-traditional pathway. I get them trained up, get them certified, and I put them in jobs. So that's what I do, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Chris. Let's hand it over to James Durago.
Hi, everyone. My name is James Durago. Pronouns that I use are he, him. I am currently the head of HR over at this startup called Molecula. Previous to that, I spent about 5+ years at this other small startup called Google. And I was I had Myles's job for Google on the ERG side, and I'm excited to be here with y'all.
Thank you, James. And let's go to Javier Chen next.
Hey everybody, my name is Javier. Served in the Navy from '08 to 2013. Got out of the military and went to community college down in San Diego. Transferred up here to Cal to finish my undergrad, and then started working at Pandora Music based in Oakland, and then transitioned to my current company at ServiceNow. Also lead co-chair the Veterans Belonging Group at ServiceNow. So super excited to meet you all, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you, Javier. And last but not least, Max Crismon.
Hi, everybody. My name is Max, and he, him pronouns. I was in the Navy from 2002 to 2006. After the Navy, I went to college, got my bachelor's degree at Washington State University. I am a recruiter here at New Relic, and I have been looking into hiring veterans and figuring out how to enhance the veteran experience coming into the workforce after military transition, and happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Max. And let's have all our panelists bring their cameras on as we dive into our first set of questions here. We're going to be exploring some of the value of skills that are learned in the service. And with that, the first question I have for you, the panel here, is what are the pros and cons of transitioning into tech?
Okay, I guess I can break the ice. I'll give a pro, and then I don't know if I'll give a con, but we'll just start with pros. What are the pros of transitioning into tech? I think the biggest one is that there's endless opportunities in tech. I still believe that tech is still in probably its adolescent stage, and I don't think it's a full-blown adult industry, much like other industries. And so there's still a lot of opportunity in this particular world. And I also think that veterans make great folks in the tech industry, particularly in the startup world, because a lot of the work that needs to get done in tech, particularly if you work at a startup, needs to be done autonomously, professionally, without much oversight or kind of hand-holding. And for a lot of folks that are coming out of the military, you've already gained those skills. People have entrusted you to make critical decisions, ones that could either save or not save a life. And it's in those decision makings and autonomy that you have already practiced, and it's really, really valuable. And I think that's a skill set that's severely lacking in the technology industry, where veterans have a clear leg up in.
I'll also kind of add to that, as well as coming into it. One of the biggest factors when I talk to veterans and transitioning military members going into technology and looking at career choices and what they want to do, the one thing that I have learned over the last 15, 20 years is pick a profession that is not necessarily foolproof through a collapse in the economy, but something that you can sustain throughout your time as a civilian. So looking at those fields, those industries that no matter where the economy is at, there's professionals that are always going to be needed, technology and healthcare. We're not getting away from any of those. So when I speak to military folks getting out, the nice thing about technology is that they can go into either or. So technology is being able to go into that tech anywhere we want. So that's a good. So we're not losing on if the economy's bad, you can go pretty much anywhere in technology. Same as healthcare. So same sides. And then if you combine the health tech, which I encourage a lot of folks to do as well, then you're double dipping and being in both. So cons are that I would say, a con to go into technology is that if you are tired of acronyms prior to getting into the civilian world, the acronyms don't stop. In fact, they probably get worse in technology and healthcare as bad as they were in the military. So that would be my only con.
Those are all great points. My opinion is that there's a lot of pros, but there are so many pathways to go down. And if you've been through basic training, if you've been through boot camp, then you've already seen this game played out before, but in a different way. Replace your rifle and your machine gun and mortar with a laptop and different types of connections and things, and you probably know more than you think you do. And it's a pretty lucrative field. And the demand is going to be there in the coming years. That is shown. So it's a good place to go. where you can adapt pretty easily once you figure some things out. On the con side, you need somebody to help you. There's a lot of self-study programs out there, and along with those self-study, there's a lot of people that just lose interest or it's just too hard. If you get in a cohort, you get with your buddies, just like we did in the military. You're a fire team, you're a squad, and you go through together with some good instructors. Then you hedge your bets. But if you go on your own, it's pretty hard. I think that's a con.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody has shared so far. I think just, technology is the future. It is now, it's the present, and it's the future, right? And there's just so much assets and funding and so much resources being poured into like the future of technology, right? So any industry that involves, any industry right now has software that involves technology, right? So tech sounds very broad in general, but if you're like looking into like software tech, that is the future, right? Like AI, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality, the metaverse, like that's not going away, and you want to be there along this journey, right? Because it's not going away. And if you just like 10 years from now, imagine looking back and you're like, oh, I missed out on that, right? And technology in general, the tech companies, especially here in the Bay Area, or that headquartered in the Bay Area or California or on the West Coast, just because they're headquartered in the West Coast, that doesn't mean there's no opportunities outside of the West Coast, right? So you don't have to be in the West Coast to be in tech. You can be in, especially now, post-pandemic or during the pandemic, they're hiring remotely. You can work from anywhere, hopefully. You find a role, because a lot of tech companies are progressive in the sense that you're okay. We've survived during the pandemic working from home, working from anywhere, and we're not going away like everybody said, right? So if you just factor all that in and you want to be a part of this, like your lifetime opportunity, then come along, right? So that's why I wanted to share.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. So I think one thing that we've highlighted there, right, especially on the cons of transitioning into tech, is that accessibility piece, right? And I just want to bookmark that for our audience. Like, keep that in the back of your heads. We're going to come back to that inclusion of the veteran experience later in the talk here. So I'll bring it back to the value of some of the skills that are learned in the service, and this one's aimed more at our recruiters and our work to hire programs. Essentially, considering coding for the future. Today's military personnel are more technical than ever. Can you speak to some of the skills or traits in the military that have provided you success, or some of the success that you've seen in today's industry?
Yeah, I can start off a little bit with that. One thing that I have found, especially on the recruiting side, and something that a lot of veterans have, is ownership. So especially when coding, when learning a new industry, learning technology, because there's not going to be a direct correlation most of the time between military development programming. There's going to be some differences heading into the civilian world. So the one thing that military members, what's really great is its ownership. Is, hey, I screwed up on this, I don't know, and they're not afraid to ask questions, to figure out the answer. If there is something, within the language, within something that's going on, they're not going to stop until they figure it out. They're also, a lot of times in the military, we're forced to be pleasers. So we are trying to go in and make sure that we are pleasing our employer, our boss. It used to be back in the military, my petty officers, the officers, I wanted to make sure that I was living up to the standard that they were wanting to live in. So that's one thing when it comes to veterans, that we know that they are going to, even if there are struggles and there's road bumps within those areas, that they're going to admit that, hey, I need help, or I'm not getting it, and not put blame on anything else other than, hey, I screwed up, I need to move forward with this. How do I do that? So that's one of those traits that you cannot teach. It's one of those things that people have, and military members, almost, if you got through your service, you have it. If you didn't, you got kicked out. So being able to take ownership, understand that there are going to be bumps in the road, and being able to present that to an employer that no matter what, if things are tough, we can still move on. And veterans are really, really strong at that.
Definitely. We also have plenty of, I think, soft skills that maybe the audience might be new to, maybe haven't considered before, talking to the recruiters and hiring managers at home? Do you want to highlight any of our panelists want to highlight some of those soft skills that, say, veterans bring to the table?
Yeah, this is Javier. I can go. And audience, attendees, feel free. Like if something comes to your mind, please put it in the chat. We, would love to speak to it, and we can go from there with those similar topics and themes. But some of the soft skills, Myles, and I think some people already have shared, but some of the soft skills are that what you learned in the military. Learning to work as a team, learning to work with people, really being intuitive about, which team member or which person, maybe not in your immediate team, but even outside of the team, right? Like which people have possessed which skill sets and what are their values, right? And how you can be intuitive about like thinking when you do work in a team one day, whether it's in tech or other type of company, like your teammates will look to you because you kind of have like my bias is that I think veterans will have an intuitive feeling of how things can operate and what can be more efficient and make the workflows better, right? So like you bring that asset and that type of skill set, whether you know it or not, whether it's soft or hard skill, but like what they call soft skills, I like to call human skills. Those are the human skills you bring to the table because, somebody going through college and somebody that went through a military, right? While they're going to college, they may be practicing some of those soft skills or human skills, but in the military, like you not just practiced it, but you already put that to test, right? Like you didn't put that to test in a college academic, student organization environment. You didn't just do that. I mean, you did it in situations where it was like you have to complete the mission, right? You complete those objectives, and that's where you put that into practice. And that's like what hopefully you can articulate when you tailor those conversations to the roles that you're applying to the roles that you want to pursue, right? And it takes a little bit of coaching, takes a little bit of time, but you continue to practice sharing your story, continue to practice how you apply those human skills. And I think eventually, like hiring teams, hiring managers, people in general will see that, and they won't forget that type of experience and that story that you share with them.
Those are great points. I think also on the soft skills is that, as a veteran, you're naturally a problem solver. And the fact is, you've probably been in charge of 3 or 4, or if you're a squad leader, you've been in charge of 12 or 13 people before. And you've made those mistakes, you've made those errors. You've seen that some people need a little more forceful leadership. Some people, you really got to use a different approach. So you can assess a group of people and kind of quickly figure out, what inspires, what motivates people. Because really what your job is as a leader is to educate and inspire. But the other thing you bring is humility, because you've been at the bottom of that totem pole too, right? And you've had to be a good follower to become a good leader. So I really love leadership in the tech arena. And I think there are really great opportunities for veterans to assert their leadership in whatever style it is. But those soft skills are really, really important because there's a stereotype that tech people are mostly introverts and focused in on their stuff. It's not really true, right? But there's a stereotype out there. So as a military person, you've seen everything and you've had to motivate all sorts of different people. So I'll leave it there, but that's a really fun topic to talk.
Sorry. So somebody in the chat dropped a Drake quote, which started from the bottom. Now we're here, and that's totally applicable here. So I think let's bring this over to, I think is a great segue to non-traditional recruiting. What is it? I'll ask the panelists, why is hiring a veteran so valuable in your opinion?
I think a lot of times, when we're looking at it, and we've hit on a bunch of these already, but bottom line is that you're getting somebody, again, that they've already been tested on honesty. They've been tested on hard work. They've proven that they've gone through that. They've gone through more than most people could imagine, and they've persevered. So those are the things that most veterans, even though a lot of times a veteran will be pretty humble about it and not realize the impact that they actually had or have made, in the big scheme of things. And so you're going to get somebody a lot of times that is humble, that will go in and say, hey, I'm here to get my job done. I want to go in and I want to make a difference in the company. I want to go in and I want to serve again. So they're looking for that passion. They're looking for something else because we're conditioned as veterans and military personnel to want to serve. We joined the military and we served. And whether it is, and it almost becomes ingrained in veterans to want to serve again. Maybe that is not in the military and in the civilian sector. It comes down to service. So what are they serving for now? And the respect for the chain of command and upper levels, and being able to understand the differences and the respect and what it takes to move about that chain and career progression, because they've seen it. They've seen and understood, hey, I need to work at the bottom. And they're not looking at a free and easy ride to the top. They understand what it takes at each level in order to advance within the career. That's something, again, as Javier was saying, within the college world, when I was getting my undergrad at Washington State, they didn't teach me about career progression. They didn't teach me about how to work with people and on these severe levels in the professional world. I learned those skills when I was in the military. Is learned how to progress and what it takes to progress in those things. So that's just in a nutshell, my feeling on it is all those invaluables that you cannot teach anywhere else other than through experience. And typically it is the veterans that are going to bring those right away. And it doesn't go away. Those are ingrained. They stick with us forever.
I'll add one thing. I think hiring a veteran is valuable because of the resilience that we have, particularly during the pandemic. We had to be resilient. I think companies who practice resilience and who make it a kind of like a part of their culture has been winning in this area, and I would say that that's very important, particularly in a startup world, because you're going to go through a bunch of stuff. There are going to be a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and those highs and lows are drastically apart from one another. But it's all part of this journey, and being able to ride it out, be resilient, and see keep the mission at the top of the tip of your tongue and top of your head is really critical, because these bumps along the road are here. And if you're at a high growth startup, or even just like at a big FANG, you're going to see a lot of things that's going to pressure your resilience. And I think that in general, veterans, particularly post 9/11 veterans that have seen theater, understand the importance of resilience and how you can self-regulate yourself to like keep pushing forward and kind of all those things. And to me, that's like really important. Again, I'm in a startup and I'm in a different world now. So resilience is something that we absolutely look for in every single candidate, because we know that we're going to put people through the ringer, and that's just the nature of the company and the industry and the place that we are in.
Yeah, absolutely. That mission, that laser focus on the mission at hand, and not at all costs, but at all cost, essentially, right? Going through pain to achieve that mission. So I think we can, let's move on here to some practices, I think aimed at our recruiters. Again, what are some practices that you found successful when recruiting and hiring veterans? And what are some of the greatest barriers in your experience, and how you overcome those?
Okay, yeah, I can jump in there. Some of the barriers that we deal with specifically, is, oh my gosh, Some of the barriers that and the things that we're looking for typically are kind of those survival skills, and teaching those is how to get through it, and being able to recognize some of the things that mentally and some of the disabilities or abilities that some of the veterans may have, and being able to break those stigmas down and understand that not all abilities are created equal, and being able to have that empathy to be able to understand a veteran situation. I think that really boils down to when you're looking at recruiting veterans and you're speaking with veterans, that they're not going to open up just to anyone. So being able to relay experience, I think that is a barrier with a lot of different businesses, I guess, and companies. And when recruiting veterans, is that there's a special, we will open up to veterans and people that understand. It doesn't have to be a veteran to understand or empathize with somebody in the veteran community. It's being able to be empathize and understand and relate to what they may have or barriers that they may possess coming into the workforce. So those are some of the things that, makes it, difficult moving forward with things.
Max, I think you're spot on with that. I think some of the, from the veteran side, there's barriers to veterans breaking into the civilian job market. And I know this firsthand. I interviewed for about 70 different jobs at a lot of different places. I'm really happy where I ended up, right? But it took a long time to get there, back to the resilience, back to the persistence, right? You can't get down just because you didn't do well on an interview or somebody didn't hire you. It's very competitive out there, right? And recruiters are separating people with a doggone micrometer. I interviewed with somebody and they asked me about my leadership style, and I wasn't even ready for this question, right? They said, well, how would you describe your leadership style? And I said, my leadership style, I'll tell you what it is. Release the hounds, right? Just let people use their creativity and initiative. And this woman said to me, you refer to your employees as dogs? And I was like, well, no, not really, but I guess I did just then. But, it's just like, that's how I would talk to other Marines. Like, hey, release the hounds, man. Let those guys go out there and do what they need to do. That doesn't work, right? I had to change my language a little bit. And when I train veterans to go and interview for jobs, I mock interview the hell out of them. The other thing is most of their resumes, including mine, quite honestly, lame. You don't know how to write a resume. Even after the transition to class, you don't know what your resume looks like. You got to rewrite your resume for every doggone job you go to. And you've got to rewrite another cover letter. You can't be lazy. You have to work really hard at it. And at NPower, I train, I donate, I have basically dedicate 1 day a week to soft skills and prep. We have 4 days a week of tech training, which is all free for veterans and veteran spouses. But 1 day, I just work people on resumes and we get back to it till they're so tired of it. But repetition is the key to retention. And when you leave my class, you're gonna have a great resume, a great LinkedIn profile, and you're not going to make the same mistake I did when somebody asks you your leadership style.
I'll quickly chime in here. I think for job seekers, so if you're a veteran trying to break into tech, some of the barriers that I think I've seen more commonly than others is you got options. No one tells you what job you want to take. Usually a job isn't lined up for you and you have to go out and find your own path. I think for folks that have been that re-up, I didn't do that. It's hard, right? You're institutionalized for so many years and you already know that, hey, after 2 years, I got a new job. I don't even have to look for one. I just got a new job. And you kind of already know that to go from E5 to 6, to go from 03 to 04, there are certain criteria that you got to hit. And in the civilian tech, particularly in tech world, that those things aren't necessarily baked in. Yeah, we do have a job architecture for a lot of the FANG companies and mid-market companies. But even then, there's no hard set rule that you must be in grade for X amount of years and you must have a command post before you can reach 03. There's none of that. So I think that's a little bit difficult, particularly if you've been in the institution for quite some time now. And then I think for companies, I think the biggest barrier that I see is just being able to understand, what the hell do you do again? Oh, you're an 18 whatever, and you're an 03 now, and you've done this. I think 99% of the world are going to be like, what the heck do you do? Do you do like some Rambo stuff or whatever? And then the 1% of the world will empathize, we understand. Unfortunately, though, the inverse, the same is true for people that are actually empowered to hire you. Like most people did not serve the military. It is a fact that that's just a thing. And so when you have all of these employers and people in power who don't know what you actually have done, it's already an innate barrier for that company because they don't know how to effectively evaluate the skills that you've gained through your military experience. All they know is this guy was a infantry officer and he did a bunch of stuff. He went overseas, and the little intricacies of what that actually means and how that translates into what they could provide to the company is still a bit of a mystery for a lot of employers. And that's why we have people like us here who are in positions who can make that change and who can advocate for veterans in the space, and being able to kind of lower the barrier of entry for that specific line item.
Absolutely. I think, James, you're touching on and highlighting, some of the barriers, including like the stigmas, right, that are associated with, some of the mental health aspects. And those, I think, are really, those are exactly what there is. It's stigma, not necessarily, like stereotypes, indicative of the truth, right? What is actually there. So with that, I think we can transition over to the inclusion of our veteran experience. So for vets that are currently in tech, what more could companies be doing to create that inclusive workplace for our veterans?
I think this is Javier. I think many of us have some of this experience already when it comes to employee resource groups or employee community groups. There's different names for different companies. We call it employee belonging group at ServiceNow, but yeah, I mean that if a company has employee resource groups and of a veteran or somebody involved in those ERGs, right? That's an acronym. It might be worthwhile for your time to reach out to those folks that are involved in ERGs because employee resource groups have a role to play when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to giving guidance on how we can evolve the culture of a company, right? How we can make it more inclusive for veterans, people with disabilities, all types of, all people from different demographic groups or have different experiences, right? So ERGs is one way that we can build community, especially during the pandemic. If we're talking from a tech software work from remote environment type of company perspective, then some of these ERGs are the ones that are really driving some of the strategy and guidance on how we can retain underrepresented employees, right? Because they're these employees are inside, working with HR, working with the culture team, working with the employee experience team, to really evolve that culture and make it more inclusive. So, if you know of anybody that participates or is involved in ERGs, please reach out to them and learn a little bit more. They can give you some more information about the company culture, about what they're doing for vets there, and about how they're engaging with recruiting teams or HR teams or hiring teams to be more inclusive in their hiring practices. So I would, that's the advice I would, or not advice, but that's kind of like my perspective when it comes to ERGs and software tech companies.
I think I would say is, so I'll answer this question from like as an employer, and then also like if you are a veteran and you try to break in. So from an employer perspective, there are certain minimum requirements that you have to have for the feds. Like you, particularly if you have a service member working at your company. So for example, a very common one is USERRA. Like you have to have that minimally in order for you to be compliant with the service members that are working at your company, whether when they could get called up to active duty. That's okay. I think if you if you're in a position where you can affect company policy, particularly as it relates to telling the world that, okay, I care about veterans, like I want more veterans or military people in my company, USERRA, being compliant with that is the bare minimum. I mean, I kind of liken it to like, you know, people used to say like, you got to have a high school degree like to get a job, or now I feel like you got to have a bachelor's degree or even a master's degree like to get the job that you really want. And to me, going above and beyond providing the legal protections that USERRA gives is like getting your bachelor's or getting your master's. Like you are doing something above and beyond that is required of you, but to show to prospective people that you mean business, you're serious, that you actually want to move up and get ahead. So an example of things that are above and beyond just USERRA would be like PayBridge went on active duty. I make a ton of money in the private sector. I am broke when I go and do Army stuff. And so my employer gives me that top up. So that it makes me whole so that while I'm serving my country, I don't have to worry that I can't pay my bills and live the life that I have now that I've earned. So I think that's an important thing. The other thing is include veterans in your DEI strategy beyond Memorial Day and Veterans Day. It's cool we got 2 holidays, but like there are 363 more days in the year. All right, highlight your boy. And then if your company doesn't have an ERG, like most of the companies over here, then make one. Tell your chief people officer we want an ERG, and make it happen. Push for it. I think those are 3 pretty, like if you are in a position of influence within your company, like those 3 basic things can get you ahead of your competition, particularly in a world where it's super competitive to hire right now. Just another thing to give you a leg up. For veterans who are listening and are interested in working in tech, what advice I would give to you is, and this is for folks that are still on active duty within a year of getting out. I would say to you to know everything that you can about SkillBridge and to tell your chain of command early and often. Beat it into their heads nicely. And just keep reminding your chain of command that like, this isn't, I'm getting out. You cannot give me any more money to try to stay in. I'm getting out. Give me the opportunity to do this DOD thing because it's going to set me up for success. And if you don't do that and your chain of command doesn't give you the opportunity to go do that, you are wrong and they are wrong. And you are doing yourself a disservice because this is a thing that has been provided to you by the government so that you can go off and be a productive member of society post your military service. I wish I had this when I got out. My life would be much easier today. Actually, let me take that back. I would be much farther ahead in my career today had I had that opportunity, but my life is still good. All right, off my soapbox.
Hey, I think also, just to add to that, you know, as a veteran, you have a responsibility to go into a company. You need to understand what the culture is that you're going into. You got to do your homework. You got to understand what. I went to visit Facebook once, and I walked in there, and there's beanbag chairs, and people got their coats on the ground and stuff, and it like freaked me out because that's not my kind of like upbringing. You know, my mom was German, so I joined the Marine Corps to get a break, right? And so I'm used to chain of command and stuff. And I went into this place where like people laying around and lounging around, and I had like, you know, control myself, right? For some people, that's cool and that's great. you know? And so I've got enough wisdom to know, hey, that's going to work for some people. Know what the culture is where you're going. The other thing that, you know, at NPower, I have a placement director. She's an Army captain in the reserves. And her job is to go out and meet recruiters like we have on here, make good friends with them. When I get ready to graduate a class, she calls those recruiters up and goes, hey, here's my class. Here's my class rankings. I got some rock stars here. I got some good agents. Just, you know, half are veterans, half are from inner cities. They're young adults from inner cities. And, you know, during the class, I make the veterans take care of those young adults. I'm like, this is not about you getting through this class. This is about, you know, Tyrone from inner city Oakland or Sally from inner city San Jose that didn't have the chance to deploy, that never went to boot camp, never left the country. Your job is to get them across the line, not just you. So there's an unselfishness piece, there's a humility piece, and there's an understanding the culture of where you're going. And I think that's a really important part. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes us anything as veterans. We had the privilege of wearing the cloth of our nation. That being said, the ERG is great. The ERG makes your voice heard in the organization, but the most important thing it does, it puts you together with other veterans. Because you know what? Sometimes you got to put your arm around your buddy and go, hey man, how you doing? All right? How are you doing? And you support each other. That is the really cool thing.
Thank you. That's excellent. I think we're touching on some of the pieces of the next question, you know, talking about mental health journeys and also tying that into what we were talking about earlier with some of the soft skills and what veterans bring to the table is that camaraderie. And, you know, it's hard to find that as deep as that goes in individuals anywhere else in any other, you know, community. So with that, you know, how can we support professionals that are dealing with the mental health journey? So these are for, you know, some of the takeaways for companies to improve veteran support, you know, and support some of the folks that are maybe dealing with some of those mental health aspects.
Yeah, I'll chime in. This has been kind of the last month has been kind of a coming out journey of my struggle. So I'll use myself as an example of mental illness and PTSD, anxiety, and depression that I have dealt with since 2006. Experienced some pretty large trauma in the military, and I suppressed it for a really long time. And so this last month, I've been in therapy for about a year. And so understanding like, okay, these things that I've dealt with for 15 years, I didn't have to, but because of stigma, because of society saying, you know, you are a veteran, you shouldn't, you know, they're scared of the things that they don't know. Right. So I think a lot of times it's number one, employers being very open to some of the things that veterans may have gone through, knowing that and asking questions. Being able to ask, okay, I understand that you've got this. What can I do to help that? Or what are the things that may assist your development within this career? I know that there's going to be roadblocks, but I think that a lot of times with companies and veterans, it's a two-way street, is that you are nervous coming into a company saying, I've got these disabilities or abilities, and not being able to fully express like things are going to happen. And these are the things that are going to, you know, you're afraid of that. So a lot of times you just don't say anything as a veteran. You don't speak out. You don't say anything other than I'll take care of it. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's things that get jumbled. And so I think it's a two-way street, one where employers and companies should be able to go in and say, it's okay. Like, we're going to get through this. We're going to go through the tough times and we'll get through, but asking the questions and not being afraid of asking the questions. Because bottom line is veterans are people, and we want to be able to talk about our experiences, not just, you know, everything else. So, and then on the veteran side it's more of us, more of the people like this on this panel, veterans speaking out and saying, it's okay to have these disabilities or abilities. It's okay to tell the world like, hey, I do struggle with XYZ thing. And it is okay. It doesn't make you any less than. It doesn't make you a weak veteran, a weak person. What it does is makes you actually a whole lot stronger. And so I think being able to go out there when it comes to these things are being able to be vocal about it and get more people on the platform to fight the stigma that is out there with veterans. And so, yeah, employers, I think on that side and barriers when it comes to it is really understanding and feeling empathy towards the veteran, because a lot of times people just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and it's no one's fault. we just need to have more voice out there speaking. So more people out there promoting it and making it a normal thing for veterans to be able to speak about, their experiences.
Yeah. So like, thanks for sharing that, Max. Really appreciate it. So like some companies, and a lot of companies in tech, software tech at least, they do offer mental health services and programs in their benefits package, right? Whether that's mental health / coaching for your overall well-being, whether that's like credit to attend an exercise class or for a gym membership. There are these health and wellness benefits that I would say a lot of tech companies offer, because they do have to offer that and really take care of the employees, right? Because at the end of the day, the employees' overall well-being means that they can be more productive and valuable to the company when their health and overall wellness is taken care of. So when you do your research about these companies, you can always ask a recruiter or somebody that work at this company, what type of health and wellness benefits do you offer to your employees, right? That's like one way you can research about the culture of the company and those type of resources that they can offer. And if the company is not offering any type of benefit relating to overall health and wellness, then maybe you should reconsider that company that you're looking into, or that industry, or those type of peer companies that you're looking at, right? Every company is going to be different, but it doesn't hurt to ask and see if that really aligns with what you want out of this next experience.
I'll add one quick thing. I think beyond just a lot of the benefits and policies that organizations can put into place, I think more important than that is the actual people that work in your company or work at that particular company. And if folks aren't generally open to talking about issues, problems, whole person, regardless if that person's a veteran or not, kind of a red flag to me. Like, I want to work with people. Like, I was blessed to have been in a smaller unit while I was in the Army. And because of that smaller unit, I was able to really connect and open up with every member of my team. And I think as a result of that bonding and understanding of who we are as an entire person and not just what we can provide to that team, we have done, like, we are able to accomplish great feats as a group more than, and like go beyond the norm, because we know each other, we understand each other, and kind of all of those things. And so in addition to looking at like the benefits that a company provides, like EAP and all those things, talk to their folks, like ask them, like, do y'all openly talk about some of these things in the company? And is this something that, your company even cares about beyond just you telling me, like, I want actual artifacts that y'all are cool with this?
Well, thank you, panelists, for this eye-opening conversation. It's bringing a lot of value, I hope, to our audience at home. And let's start with some Q&A. I see one there in the chat, and Ariane will be moderating our Q&A here. So, and audience, if there's anything else that pops in your mind, please drop that in the chat, and I think we'll have an opportunity to, if you want to ask your questions directly as well. So with that, Ariane, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Myles. The first question that comes in is, what are common stigmas and stereotypes that interviewer or recruiters have towards veterans in the hiring process?
I can talk to this just from pushing a lot of veterans out to job interviews and debriefing them when they get back. The one is that there's a stereotype of It goes back to even before Vietnam and the Vietnam War and everything else. There's some kind of mental health problem with every veteran. I get hugely annoyed at this, right? Because it's not post-traumatic stress disorder. It's post-traumatic stress, really. If you were in a car accident, if something happened to you, you're going to have some kind of post-traumatic stress, regardless of what that trauma is, whether that's combat related or whatever. It's normal stuff that people deal with. And sometimes the combat zone is a little bit extreme, but there's also what I look at it as post-traumatic strength, right? And you've dealt with all this. Whatever you're going to throw at me at Facebook or Cisco ain't going to be what I did on the Syrian border, Western Iraq, the Euphrates River Valley. It ain't going to compare. And so, I get after that. That's one thing. The other thing that I think is a lot of times we don't do a good job with our resumes of explaining what exactly it is that we did. And so people read it, they don't really read the resume or they just skim over it, right? So I think there's a stereotype on that mental health thing, or that, the experiences that you have somehow don't relate to the job that you're applying for, when that's not true. And I'll just turn it over to my colleagues there.
I mean, I guess I'll jump in there too. Loved where you're going with that, Chris. And a lot of it is, and I talk about this all the time about, and I'm even seeing some of the things, everyone has an issue or has an ability, has something that has gone on in their life. Like there isn't a single person out there that hasn't gone through something. And so I think the stigma is different and it's something that we need to, change, is that the stigma with veterans shouldn't be any different than a stigma or not stigma from any other person that has, like, use your reference as getting hit by a car or having something trauma filled with their family or anything like that. The stress can still be the same, but you tack on military to, I know I love post-traumatic strength. It's so cool. You add that in and you add the military before it, but if you just told somebody PTS, that somebody would be like, if you were not a military, like, oh, they're not, going postal, they're not doing all these other things, but still it's just the same. It's just a different scenario and where you got it. So yeah, absolutely love everything you just said on there.
Yeah. And I think interviewers and recruiters that aren't familiar with the veteran or military affiliated communities, they don't, like when you put on your resume a certain role you had or your rank, and it's primarily military type of verbiage, they're not going to understand that. If none of us here, let's say we're all recruiters here, we might all understand that, but like 97% of all recruiters are not military, right? Are not, they might not even have members of the family that served and even understand that type of verbiage and language that you're using on your resume. So I think some of the, there's some stigma there because they don't, interviewers, they don't understand your resume, and the recruiter might not be able to explain it really either, right? But a good recruiter will at least try to understand and kind of give you that guidance to like revise your resume, right? Tailor your resume to like a specific type of job description that you're going after, you're applying for, right? And that does take some time to like really kind of reassess or rewrite your resume, I guess, right? There are people that have there are veterans that have transitioned in tech that had to really rewrite the resume a few times so that it really, the language and the verbiage, those key words really aligns, right? Like you might be leading a team and in charge of a specific, maintenance program, for example. Well, you don't just say like maintenance supervisor for this squad, you say program manager, and I coordinated and did X, Y, and Z for this team in the military, and this is the results. This is how I added value, right? Like if anybody like can take away anything from today, like think about the situation, task, action, and results, right? The STAR method. That's what a lot of the that's what they teach you in college at the Career Services Center when you're at some four-year university. Even community colleges will teach you this, right? So that's like one way to start off. But over time, like as you progress, and you look at these job descriptions that seem even more senior level type of roles, you're going to slowly see like those description and verbiage become even more like more in depth or more technical. For example, if it's a technical role. So yeah, like there are stigmas. There are those type of like people that have unconscious bias once they read your title and job description, your bullet point, your resume, and they don't know, right? And that's where you can come in and change that resume up. And if they still don't understand, then that's where you can further share what that experience means and how that added value and how that may translate to this role, what you will be doing in this role and how you will add value that way.
There's a question in the Q&A right now. What are some phrases veterans can use to help explain their work? I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to drop in this YouTube link. And I apologize ahead of time. It's a Google thing, but I helped make the video. So I hope it's okay if I drop it in. Hopefully this helps you answer a lot of the questions that you might have about like, how do I explain to non-veterans or military community members, like what I actually do. A couple of years ago, in partnership with Google's, there's a team at Google that like makes commercials and stuff. It's pretty awesome. With them, and we created this video. This video is supposed to address like a lot of those, like, how do I take this thing that I've done in the military and make it something that is palatable for non-military people. I recommend watching that and seeing if you can get some value from it. If you don't, then blame Google. If you find value in it, let me know.
All right. Well, thank you, panel. I think we're running down on time here. I do want to keep an eye on that and give everyone an opportunity to sign off and add any plugs and how they can our audience can maintain connection or get in touch with you. So with that, I'll start with you, Chris. There to since you started off our introductions, you can start off our sign off.
Thanks, Mal. Well, it's a complex arena. When you're leaving military service, or even if you've been out for 4 or 5 years, you're still a veteran. You still identify as that, and you're out there on the job market, and it's a bit of a crazy place. Don't go it alone. You have, your brothers and sisters in arms. You have friends you can check in on. When you go to apply for a job, a lot of times it's that hookup. Somebody has referred you. Going it on your own is really, really hard. I run Empower California. I combine veterans and young adults in the same class. I tell the veterans to take care of those young people. It's really great. I also train veteran spouses for free, and I dedicate 1 day a week to soft skills. We hit that. That's really, really important. And I cover everything from sexual harassment policies in the workplace to what's the difference between a checking account and a savings account. And, some people leaving the barracks never even paid an electric bill in 5 or 6 years because you live in barracks. You went to the chow hall, right? So we realize that, but just reach out to wherever you can find assistance. And I put my email up on here earlier. Link in with me. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. And I look forward to talking to any of you who have time outside of this. And thank you to New Relic for hosting this really important and really a heck of a lot of fun and an awesome panel to be part of. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're just at time. So, I see some people dropping some links in the chat. So that is for our audience. I'm sorry to cut it off there, but just to be respectful of everyone's time and make sure we end. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your day.